Hawaii, sunshine, beaches, and the absolute pursuit to just get filthy rich. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 9, the JoJolands, might already be one of the strangest starts in the entire series, and we're only just getting started. We open this story on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, which is the Hawaiian island that has Honolulu on it, with sunny and clear skies as we see two police officers pull over a car blasting Dua Lipa as they're driving down for apparently no reason. We're introduced to our two main protagonists and Joestars of this part driving this car, one of them being Joestar. Yes, it's literally just Jojo and Dio in one name, and also his brother Dragona. After asking for their license and registration, one cop orders Dragona out of the car to perform a pat down, in which he starts really, let's just say, feeling on them when he reaches inside their pants and feels something down there. Yeah, we're like 2 pages in and we're off to a pretty interesting start of this JoJo series. Seeing this happen, Jodio gets out of the car and says to get their hands off of his big bro, as a second cop yells at him and pulls a gun on them, telling them to get down. But as he continues to shout, all of a sudden a bunch of raindrops appear all over them, causing the cop to suddenly fall to the ground. We see Jodio standing there, and towering above him, we see his stand, November Rain. And I don't know about you guys, but this is actually one of my favorite stand designs. November Rain just looks so cool towering above him. The original cop also pulls out his gun when Dragona then touches his face, rearranging everything to make him basically look like a Mr. Potato Head that was put together by a toddler. Jodio then jumps on the cop, beating them almost to death as they decide to destroy the evidence by burning the cop car, and Dragona, using their stand, changes the license plate so they can flee the scene safely, which we'll get more into Dragona's stand to explain more about how that works shortly. But already with this opening scene, we can see that we're going to follow two Joestars in this series that, although they're the protagonists, they're kind of more somewhat on the villain side of things. But just follow with the story, it's going to get really interesting. We get introduced to the Joestar family of this part, with the mother just basically being taken care of by all of the townspeople purely because of the activities of both Jodio and Dragona. And we also see a family tree line showing us that they are actually the grandson of this timeline's Joseph Joestar, and that their cousin is actually Yoshikage Kira. Like, that's just so cool to me. I don't know why. Jodio gets on the school bus heading his way to school when a guy who honestly just looks like Tingle from Zelda comes up to him asking him for the quote-unquote good stuff, where we learn that Jodio is actually a dealer of, let's say, some sort of substances, or what he refers to himself as a gopher that just transports things between people. And although most JoJos from the other parts usually have some purpose to this story, like Jotaro needing to defeat Dio or Josuke saving his town from a murderer, Jodio, he just simply wants to get filthy rich. You know, that's actually kind of the true American dream, which is really fitting for this part being in Hawaii. Afterwards, Jodio goes to visit his brother Dragona at work with another man named Paco, who's going to be pretty important coming up, when a large lady looking like the size of the girl from Resident Evil 8 comes in, and oh my god, she's huge. She orders all three of the people to the back office, where we learn that this lady is not only the principal of their school, but also the boss of their gang, which, pause for a moment here. I just think it's kind of funny how part 5 we had this gang boss of Diavolo who was super mysterious and a tall, lean, almost scary looking man. And then part 9 we got this as the gang boss. Okay, resume. She lays out a game plan for the group. There's going to be a super rich Japanese man that is flying into Hawaii for vacation to his second home. And with him, he has a diamond that's worth over $6 million. And because of all of the expenses of them selling it, if they can steal it from them, they all can get a cut of $30,000 each. But they're going to need some help. So Tingle from before comes in. By the way, his actual name is Usagi, but come on, he literally looks exactly like Tingle. Like exactly down to the same red shorts. I'm pretty sure Araki just basically made his own version, probably after like playing Zelda or something. The group sets out together, renting a drop-top Camaro because, I mean, if you're gonna go rob a man, might as well do it in style. They stake out the house looking for the opportune time to break in, but of course, this house has security cameras. Tingle summons his stand and, so you know how JoJo has a thing of naming stands after songs? Well, his stand is named Mate Kudasai, which is actually a pretty beautiful song by King Crimson, but also whenever I hear of it, I just think of... Now his stand, I actually just think it's almost hilarious in terms of JoJo stands because it's unnecessarily complicated in that he can summon objects. but only if someone else around him desires that object. So he can't want it, someone else has to want it, and then he can basically grant their wish. So if Jodio wants that camera, he can use the Mate Kudasai to create a second one. That way there would be 2 videos and you can't tell which one would be real, which is a pretty interesting way to solve this problem. We see the owner swimming outside and wait a second, is that... Oh my god, it's Rohan Kishibe. Just know that Araki was probably so happy to be drawing Rohan again in this part. With Rohan outside, they hatch their plan to break in while he's distracted, using Dragona's smooth operator stand to pick the safe lock where the diamond is, which honestly, their stand is very similar to Misa's stand except just not needing a gun. And also along the way as they're going to the safe, they see several volcanic rocks just laying around. Keep this in mind because this is going to become very important. Dragona uses Smooth Operator to attempt to pick the lock to the safe when a cat that they saw outside as they were coming in now enters the house walking towards them. They finally open up the safe, seeing the diamond in all of its glory, and as they grab it and they attempt to rush out, boom, Paco's shoelaces tie around his leg, digging in, crumbling him to the ground as strings wrap around Dragona's arms as well, where they are now under attack from an enemy stand. Who's the enemy stand, you may ask? The cat. Yes, literally the cat is a stand user. Paco attempts to use some scissors to cut off the rope, but nothing is working. Luckily, Dragona is able to use the smooth operators to get under the string and slip it off. And Paco is also able to use his stand called the hustle, which basically allows him to use his muscles to grab objects. Just take that for what it is, to squeeze the scissor blade so hard on the string that it finally cuts it off. Now finally, they're free and they attempt to run out. But come on, this is a JoJo series. Nothing ever goes that smoothly. Paco's backpack is open. Yes, they just stole a whole diamond and lost it that quick. Pretty good work so far, team. The diamond rolls away on the floor, and as Dragona goes to pick it up, they look up and see Rohan reaching for the diamond as well because, well, diamond is unbreakable, right? Bad joke, I'm sorry guys. Rohan picks up the diamond and uses Heaven's Door to make quick work of both Usagi and Paco, tying them up as he then begins to call the cops, telling them that someone has broken into his house. He also goes to tie up Dragona when the rain begins again, as Jodio enters and is actually able to not only defeat Rohan, but he's also able to even tie him up to the chair using some zip ties that they had. Now you remember about a minute or two ago when I told you to remember all those rocks? Jodio tells Rohan that he can tell that he's only in Hawaii for these volcanic rocks, since he even had 2 of them in the safe next to the diamond. And he also tells him if he doesn't call the cops back right now and tell them that that was just a false alarm, well then, boom, he smashes one of the rocks, as Rohan starts literally just tweaking and freaking out, which makes you ask, what's important about these rocks? Well, let's just say that these rocks end up basically becoming one of the most important things of this series. To save the last remaining rock from being crushed, Rohan agrees to call the cops back, but as they prepare to leave, he tells Jodia to keep a hold of the lava rock and that he must not lose it no matter what, and as long as he can hold on to it, he truly will become filthy rich. Jodio even asks him, what is this lava rock, with Rohan just saying, you're the one that drew the card, I'm only leaving it in your care, I'm not giving it to you, and that he will resign his police report as he is sure that they will meet again, and that no matter what, he must not mention this lava rock to anyone. By the way, Jodio tells everyone about this lava rock. But this now sets off the what the heck is this lava rock part of this story. We then fast forward and we cut back to when the team has returned from their mission as they're waiting for their flight back home. Usagi starts begging Dragona for $20 because, well, he's broke. And as they go to pull it out, the $20 bill all of a sudden zooms underneath the lava rock. Usagi notices this and he thinks about how it looks like this lava rock is drawing things worth money towards it, as they start questioning how a rock can even know what is of value. They come up with a plan to do an experiment on the rock, thinking about how the rock was in the safe with the diamond, so it has to do something with the distance to the lava rock of the valued item. Maybe if they can make something touch the lava rock will then remember the object's owner and bring it back to them. Just stick with me here for a second. If they put the lava rock on top of the $20 bill that belongs to Dragona and then they toss the bill away on the ground, maybe it'll come back? No, a guy comes and just swipes it off the ground. But they're not done. Maybe it's because the $20 wasn't enough value. Paco comes and tells them that there was a fly in his drink, so he made the shop give him a refund. And you wouldn't guess what refund he got. Yes, the same $20 bill, which they also marked to make sure now has made its way back to Dragona. But now there's the question of how does this literal piece of rock know what is worth value? How can it tell a $20 bill different from just like a napkin or a paper or anything else? Well, you would need something pretty valuable to start an experiment with that. Luckily, there's a pretty expensive watch store right next to them. I'm going to kind of speedrun this part as it's not the most important, but basically Dragona and Usagi enter into the watch store asking the employee to, you know, just see a few watches. After slightly touching the volcanic rock to the watch, they try to see if the watch will end up coming back to them, when all of a sudden, one of the watches just goes missing. But one of the most important things throughout this is that Dragona realizes that it's through people's emotions and connection to things that makes them worth money. And then that is how the volcanic rock is able to tell what's worth money and what's not, and that they're certain that the watch will somehow come back to them. Dragona and Usagi meet up with the group when, just follow along with me for a second, a woman and a man happen to go into that store, they buy the watch and they bring it outside where the woman for some reason takes it off, putting it on a napkin. And then a bunch of birds come picking up the watch and fly towards them to drop it on Dragona, making sure the watch now has come back to them. When bam, it's actually not the watch, it's actually an enemy stand user named Charming Man with his stand Big Mouth, which either can be a reference to a song by the Smiths or that one terrible cartoon show you see people make fun of. His power is very similar to Dr. Wu from JoJolands in that he can turn his body into kind of sand-like particles. Oh yeah, during this fight also, Usagi confesses his feelings for Dragona, but they're just like, nah bro, I'm good. They attempt to fight against Charming Man, but using his sand power, he can basically just keep teleporting around them and constantly avoiding their attacks. But at the end of the fight, as both him and Jodio fall into the water, Paco realizes that this guy must know a lot about the volcanic rock. So we see something that's happened a few times throughout JoJo. They actually decide to spare the enemy and keep him alive, even going back with him to the airport. Just, you know, kind of chilling with the guy who just like 2 pages ago was actually just fighting all of them to the death. Also, during all of this scuffle, the watch from earlier that the girl had goes missing and it ends up in a fish, which then a fisherman then pulls out of the water. Keep this in mind, I'll come back to this in like 20 seconds. We learned that Charming Man, which yes, is his actual name, which they even make fun of him for, is after the rock and actually knows a lot about it. And he explains that this lava rock comes from an island where there's no water source and the rain gets absorbed into the ground. But there's this one place on that island where the water had welled up to the surface, and in that area there was a big lava tube where there was a cave opening that opened up, and the rock came from that opening. We also see a flashback where Charming Man was biking with his brother near the lava tube when his brother suddenly vanished, and that's when he saw Rohan walking and then also dropping money on the ground. And wherever the money would attract towards a rock, he would see him pick that up. And that Charming Man simply just wants to know what this rock is about because he thinks that it has something to do with his brother going missing. Oh yeah, a guy also comes up to them trying to sell souvenirs to Dragona and Usagi, and you won't guess what he has. Yes, the watch is back, and yes, it smells like fish, confirming that it's the same one, and they're able to buy it off him for $30, officially showing that it has come back and they're now able to board their flight. Also taking Charming Man with them, which again, this guy just like 4 pages ago now was just literally fighting against all of them. They take the diamond back to the gang boss where they each get their share of the $30,000 each, and each probably gain some levels and probably some new equipment along the way as well. Pretty successful job, team. Good job. The boss, however, realizes that somehow with them stealing a diamond of this value, nobody around town has mentioned any robbery, so something must be up, in which they now have to explain everything that just happened. They have to explain the volcanic rock, and even bringing Charming Man in and vouching for him that he can be trusted as he knows a lot about this volcanic rock. And Meryl is actually pretty genius in what she comes up with. She realizes that this rock looks to only be a small piece, and so there must be a larger piece up on the mountain where it was found. But that land where the mountain is owned by a company named Howler. After explaining to her how the rock attracts money, the boss of course says, well, let's go make some money then. But actually in a pretty smart way. They're gonna take over the Howler company's bank accounts, their land, the company, everything will be theirs using this rock. In total, this is probably going to be somewhere north of $50 billion worth of assets. Yes, using a rock to gain $50 billion. This is truly only a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type of plotline. They come up with a plan and set out to make all of the Howler Company's land now theirs. Dragona, Usagi, and Charming Man go to the State Land Registry, since Hawaii has deeds which designates who owns the land. But she also says that the State Land Registry has an original copy of each deed, and if they can touch the rock into it, somehow, some way, the land should then come back to them. Also, despite the deeds being a very important thing, apparently anybody can just go to the State Land Registry and browse the land deeds since it's a public space, so they don't even really have to sneak in. They can just kind of walk in and just use fake IDs through Dragona's smooth operators to just get in easily. Also, just look at this panel of how hard Charming Man locks in. Bro is mogging us. And this plan actually goes fairly smoothly. The employee says only they can be the one to touch the deed, so as she flips through it, Dragona then just kind of slightly hovers over it and allows the rock to touch them, and then they're able to leave without any hitch. Another level up for the team. Psych again. When does a mission ever go perfect in the JoJo series? As they're leaving, Usagi just starts suddenly throwing up on the ground, calling for a doctor, throwing up like a cloudy substance as a bunch of what looks like scaly rock starts forming all over his skin. The group suddenly becomes under attack from an autonomous type of stand that was implanted into the pages of the deeds for the Howler Company, and it's like a miniature stand that can enter into people's bloodstream to attack different parts of their body, somewhat like a magic school bus type of episode. Now it's basically poisoning both Dragona and Usagi. Back at the state registry, we see a detective named Bobby Jean, a very cowboy type of looking guy, alongside a little girl named Lulu, which is actually the stand user that was attacking both Dragona and Usagi, with the stand being named Bags Grew. They arrived at the state registry to find out who was looking at the deed, since they can tell that the stand was activated, when we see that the group kind of messed up as they were caught on video leaving, since Usagi wasn't able to use his Mate Kudasai once he became under attack by the enemy stand, so him changing the cameras no longer worked and they were now caught on video. In the car, as they're all rushing towards the hospital, Jodio is able to use his November rain to drip a raindrop into Dragona's mouth where he sources the enemy stand, and then after locating it, Dragona can use smooth operators to get a hold of it, and they're able to use both of these stands to effectively attack the enemy stand and now save Dragona. Unfortunately, however, the stand has progressed too far into the body of Usagi, so they quickly think that when they reach the hospital, they'll find an MRI machine to scan him, and then once they can locate it through the MRI scan, they can then use Dragona's smooth operators to also defeat that one that's inside Usagi. Like I said, just follow along with me. They speed over to the hospital, and as they're looking for the MRI machine, they see the employee from the land registry also admitted there, when they also see her dad, who also just so happens to be a congressman who was also actually investigating the Howler Company at this very moment. And as he's outside of the room when his daughter starts coding, he drops his tablet rushing in, which also just so happened to have a screen pulled up that needed a fingerprint authorization to then change the Howler Company's land into now state-owned property. Basically, the government was already looking into the Howler Company at this point to then take all of his land, and so this all is just one big coincidence happening all at the same time. As the group sees this tablet on the ground, they can already recognize what happens, and Dragona uses the smooth operator to drag one of the fingerprints left on the tablet to move it towards the authorization screen, successfully making it look like this change was authorized by the congressman. We then cut to a scene to where we see the leader of the company, Howler-sama, landing from his private jet as multiple people approach him, telling him that the state government has officially started the seizure of all the land that he owns. Oh yeah, and because that, he's now bankrupt. He now owes these people $30 billion from a loan that he got from them, and because of all of this, he's probably going to be going to jail. Yeah, not the greatest day for this guy. But also, just by looking at how Howler-sama looks, you can just tell that he's going to be the main villain of the JoJolands. Cutting back to the hospital, as the group continues to look for the MRI machine, Bobby Jean and Lulu chase after them, also arriving at the hospital after they were able to track them through seeing the vehicle in the videos. As they're walking in, Howler places the call to them, telling them that he knows that this group that was looking at the deeds must have a lava rock with them, and if they see them, they have permission to eliminate them on site. After heading up the elevator, they see the group standing there, and no hesitation, Bobby Jean pulls out a gun with a silencer on it, just firing several shots into the hospital. Although with the bullets, he's able to use his stand to control the bullet speed, making them shoot very slowly, So somewhat similar to Whole Horse's stand, and in this, he's actually able to hit Paco. After they realize that they're now under attack, Jodio and Paco get into an entire shootout with Bobby Jean. At the same time that this is happening, Usagi and Dragona go into an empty room as there was no MRI machines that were available, but then Usagi has Dragona ask for an MRI machine, which he can then use the Mate Kudasai to form one. And somehow, some way, they already know how to use the MRI machine, and they're able to successfully scan him, find the stand inside of him, and then use the smooth operators to snuff it out. As that's going on, Jodio is able to defeat Bobby Jean using his November Rain, in which seeing Bobby Jean now dead causes Lulu to cry, as Jodio just goes up to her and says, "We're not gonna let you go, by the way. When you're done with all these tears, you're coming with us now." Now, I promise you, I need you to just keep following along with me, because when I said that this is bizarre, it's gonna get even more bizarre right now. One of the loan sharks that saw Howler as he arrived in his private jet on the way driving from there stopped at the hospital, and during the shootout between Paco and Bobby Jean, he also got shot and ended up in the room next to Paco as he was getting treated after the fight for his gunshot wound. One of the nurses, however, misplaced their personal belongings, and the loan shark's bag ended up in Paco's room, which they're able to find. They look inside of it and they seen the loan documents of Howler owing them the $30 billion. So now they have these loan documents and they can use it to be the ones to collect this debt, as Howler used all of the land that he owns as a collateral for this $30 billion loan that he got. But they obviously can't do this by themselves. They would need to be the loan people. And so as they're leaving the hospital, they just take the guy with them. Like, he's still in the hospital bed, they just take him with. They somehow sneak him out. I don't know. And then they all head back to the boss's place with now Lulu and Yokohama, the bank guy. And man, do I have to say, that hospital part was so dramatic, and I promise you though, it's only gonna get even more bizarre from here. Meryl May starts interrogating Lulu, which is just super funny. It's just some super tall, hulking woman talking to like a super little girl, like 1/10 of her size. But she asks her about Howler and how much he may know already about the group, in which Lulu confirms that he knows nothing about exactly who they are yet, so for now, they're in the clear. Meryl tells the group that with everything going on, it's going to be a pretty high likelihood that Howler will probably be sending some hitmen after them, so they'll have to finish this plan pretty quickly, and the countdown now starts for them only having 7 days to make the mountaintop theirs. Meanwhile, we cut to Howler and we see him in a Rolls Royce just chilling with a girl on his arm. Bro is just like actually living the life. That is until all of a sudden hundreds of people all protesting against him in the Howler company all swarm his car, banging on it and yelling at him that he needs to leave Hawaii, causing him to have to leave his car and run into his office building, where we see 3 people inside: a lawyer named Key West, a police officer named Chabang Lem, and Ningbo, a firefighter. And just by looking at them, you can already tell that they're going to be stand users. They brief Howler on everything that's been going on, and they tell him that Bobby Jean is dead. And they even ask him what Bobby Jean was looking for, but Howler says that's none of their business since he doesn't want to tell them about the volcanic rock. But he does tell them that he knows that Lulu is now missing, and it's going to be up to them to go and find her. Luckily, however, they already have a lead because they were able to look into Bobby Jean's phone and see that right before he died, he accessed the Armed Forces military records and he looked up a specific name on it, and that name being a Paco Luberantes, age 19. Back to our main group, the group sets out driving to Howler's estate, which is actually a super huge $400 million yacht, looking like the map Hijack from Black Ops 2. Some time has passed in them getting here, so now we only have 72 hours left until the government seizes the Howler company's land. So they have to hurry up and have him transfer the rights to them first. And they basically plan to extort him using the loan documents that they have, with Charming Man using his stand to change his appearance to look like Yokohama so that he can pretend to be one of the people from the bank. As this is happening, however, trouble starts at the school. Lem and Ningbo go to the school and start questioning the principal about Paco. Except, of course, the principal is Meryl, so like, they're not getting anything out of her. She's the gang boss. She's just basically standing 10 toes down on her own to not give up any information. And she actually comes up with a pretty clever idea to send out an email to the whole school, something regarding homework. But it's actually a secret message to let the group know that they're now being followed and that she is under attack. After deciphering this message, Paco and Usagi before boarding the ship decide to instead head back to the school to go help her. Keep this in mind, we're gonna come back to this really shortly. Back on the Howler estate ship, Jodia, Dragona, and Charming Man / Yokohama board the ship, which I just gotta point out. On the ship, Howler has a merry-go-round. Like, what grown man uses a merry-go-round? That's usually something for kids. I'm starting to think that Howler probably has a friend named Pepsi Bean or something like that. Howler has them all sit in his office where he sits them all down, pulling out a gun for what he says is just, no reason. And he doesn't waste any time. He is all about business. He brings out a case telling them that he has $40 million in cash that he will give to each one of them individually to just, let this debt and everything just go away. But Jodio doesn't want to just get rich. He wants to get filthy rich, and they want everything he's got, the complete $50 billion. They tell him that the money isn't what they want. I mean, bro owes them $30 billion and is trying to make it go away for just like $120 million. Instead, they just want some collateral. They don't want the whole $30 billion. They just want the land that he put up as the collateral for the loan. Not even all of the land. They only want just this small spot of this mountaintop to use as farmland. And not only that, but after all this stuff with the government blows over, they'll even let him buy it back from them. They just need his signature and then this can all go away. Which honestly is a pretty good deal for him, and they continue to go back and forth to try and convince him when Howler is like, wait a second. Pause this for a moment, and he notices little rock and sand particles all over the room and all of the money that he put down. Jodio also notices this, and he notices that this is the lava rock because, well, it's attracted to money and things of value, and they have $20 million sitting right in front of them. And because it's so much money in front of them, it's literally causing the lava rock to deteriorate, and it's now just everywhere all over the room. Howler also notices that this looks like the lava rock, and he starts freaking out, pointing the gun at everyone, even Key West, who was with him, and he threatens everyone, saying if they can't answer his questions, he'll throw their corpses into the sea. And at this point, he's not signing any papers, and he's even at the point of threatening the ship's staff, which, wait, is that Gappy from JoJolands? Nah, it's just a reference as they're wearing the same sailor outfit. Pretty cool though. In his rage, he starts yelling and he lets off a few shots. And as he continues trying to find out who has the rock, police boats start to surround the ship as a small fire broke out after he shot the wall trying to scare everyone, and the police were automatically alerted by the ship's fire alarm system. Jodio and Charming Man / Yokohama use this opportunity to pressure Howler, telling him that it's only a matter of time till both the police and then even the government board the ship to start seizing his assets, including this yacht and all the land that he owns. So he has to sign these papers now or else it's all gonna be over for him. But before we get to that dramatic climax, we're gonna go back to Usagi and Paco on their mission to save the principal, because this is gonna tie into where we are on the boat. Usagi and Paco go to the principal's office, seeing a trail of blood and 2 fingers on the ground with the principal missing, realizing that she's been kidnapped. They chase after the principal, with Lem and Ningbo having taken her back to the boutique, as they're sweeping through it like it's a SEAL Team 6 mission, with Lem interrogating her by using her stand lying eyes that can detect if someone is lying by sensing their fear. After they continue sweeping through and looking through the boutique, they find a secret door that has both Lulu and the real Yokohama hidden in it, when Meryl, realizing that it's basically over at this point, gives up the act and tells them that she knows that Howler has $50 billion worth of assets, and she's gonna do everything to get it from him. And she does this actually in hopes to distract them and have them turn against Howler, since she knows that they're just people who work for money, but it doesn't really work. They open up the latch to find Lulu and Yokohama as Paco busts in just in the nick of time, and he does not hold back. He gets into a huge fight with Ningbo, going blow for blow, ultimately being able to pummel him to the ground. But at the same time that this is going on, Lem hides in the underground room to escape Paco and closes the door behind her, giving her some time. However, back up top, Ningbo is not out yet, and using his stand, which the best way I can explain it is this is a power that a certain depraved section of Reddit would love, in that he can inflate things, continues to fight against Paco, with them literally squaring up and going blow for blow again. And I just gotta say, I know that this is probably gonna be like a good 10 years before we see a JoJoland anime, but genuinely, I cannot wait to see this fight animated. It's so cool to read. After a long fight of them going blow for blow against each other, after Ningbo makes the mistake of reaching for a gun on the ground that Usagi was reaching for, he yells out saying to give it to him, and then he's able to steal the gun, pointing it at Paco. But right before he can shoot, because he technically said that he wanted someone to give him a gun, he was asking for it, and that gave Usagi a chance to use the Mate Kudasai to make another gun, successfully using it to defeat Ningbo right in the nick of time, saving Paco. Back in the underground cellar, Lem starts interrogating Lulu, trying to learn everything that she knows about what's going on with the group, learning about the lava rock and the plan for the $50 billion, as she's able to detect when Lulu is lying. During this discussion, however, Lulu says that she thinks that Howler is her father, which Lem actually doesn't detect as a lie, but it's not really confirmed at this point. But this throws Lem off, giving Lulu a chance to use her stand against her to successfully take her out temporarily. Okay, I know that was a lot to explain, but keep all of that in mind. We're gonna now go back to the sweet life of Howler and company on deck. Real ones will get that reference. As the police and fire team rush onto the boat, they continue pressuring Howler, telling them that he has to sign these papers right now. Except he literally just tells them to F off. Key West, however, starts also stressing to him, telling him that they need to leave this boat immediately, when her phone buzzes and she gets a text from Lem with some pictures of Yokohama in a hospital bed. And then she looks up and sees Yokohama in front of her, except it's actually Charming Man, so how can she see him in a hospital bed? And then several texts start coming one after another, talking about some lava rock that Howler's looking for, and then a $50 billion plan to steal all of his assets, just one after another. Everything that Lem found from Lulu, she's now telling the Key West. Yeah, gang, I hate to say it, but cover's blown at this point. Nothing is ever gonna go smoothly in the JoJo series, just like I said before. The firemen and police start boarding the ship, except it's actually the FBI boarding to seize the ship, telling everyone to evacuate right now, when suddenly Jodio is pushed to the ground by a bunch of tiny little hands, now being attacked by another enemy stand. And he's only able to narrowly escape by just spamming more of November Rain everywhere. The FBI continue to usher everyone out, and as Jodio and Dragona are trying to run away, they continue to be attacked by the enemy stand, which actually takes the lava rock away from them as they see the stand carrying it away by traveling through gaps, which is actually the stand of Key West named West End Girl. A big commotion breaks out as West End Girls attempts to attack Jodio, with Jodio countering with November Rain. In the commotion, however, one of the FBI members gets hit, causing them also to freak out, in which they just start shooting their gun everywhere. Howler, hearing all of this go on his boat, I mean gunshots, yelling, all this commotion, just absolute chaos going on, rushes to the scene to see Jodio and Dragona standing over two FBI officers who have been shot. Realizing at this point that this plan has now completely gone off the rails, Jodio and Dragona think about leaving, but they also know that if they can just get this lava rock back, the land will surely somehow end up back to them, and that they can somehow make him sign this deal, so they can't leave without the lava rock. They have to get it back. While all this is going on, Charming Man finds the volcanic rock being hidden in the gap between an FBI officer and the railing of the ship, and he gives up his cover to break himself apart to reach and grab for the rock. But in reaching for it, the FBI officer shoots at him as well, as Howler is just looking at this unfold like, man, what is going on today on my ship? In getting shot at, this causes the volcanic rock to fly out of his hand, leading to a nearby drain, with Dragona and Jodio follow after it, leading them to a pool on the ship where Key West begins to attack them. But in this pool, being faced against both November Rain and Smooth operators, she ends up ultimately losing the battle. Howler, who was chasing after Jodio after seeing him run away suddenly, arrives and sees them holding the lava rock, telling them to show it to him, asking them if this is the real thing, and Jodio's just like, yup, it's real, my guy. And then Howler demands them to give it over to them, but when they refuse, he says that he's going to literally hunt them down and hunt anyone that they know, including their family. Jodio refuses, however, telling him that the $50 billion will be theirs, and everything Howler just said about hunting them and their family and friends down will not be for them, but it's rather going to be Howler being the one hunted. And then that's the current end of the series. Man, JoJolands is insanely bizarre, and honestly, that's one of the most dramatic parts of JoJo I've read, but I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I made this video so that way when the new chapters come out, I can make monthly videos on each chapter that comes out and you guys can be caught up so you can watch it along with me. But I hope that you guys enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next chapter.